lights behind me that tell me when all the social media streams come on. So just they're always a bit eclectic. Tell me, Justin, electric cars. Have you got lots of your colleagues or your mates who are trying to persuade you to join the cult of the electric car, or even worse, join the cult of Elon and Tesla?
Max, we're lucky if we get electricity in the house, let alone to mobilize a car. So no, we have rolling blackouts here in South Africa, so electricity is at a premium. I don't have any friends with electric cars.
Really? Because it's such a big drive this end, and this was just going to lead me on to, you can see where this is going. Electric cars, electric mountain bikes. Knowing your love of mountain bikes, are you seeing a transition from people moving from traditional mountain bikes to electric bikes? Because I am.
Absolutely. So I haven't yet jumped across. I'm of an age where I think I can do that. So I am looking at them, but as long as I can sort of keep the fat at bay by riding an ordinary bike, I keep going. But yeah, a lot of the races we do and the rides we do, more and more people on electric bikes.
Yeah, I think once you've been on an electric bike, there'll be no turning back for you. But it feels to me, it feels wrong in some ways. Likewise with an electric car, I still laugh at my friends who drive off an electric car because there's no sound, there's no passion with it. And I think the same might be with the electric bikes. But Justin, I bet within 6 months, I bet you're on an electric bike and you're whizzing past everyone at 40 miles an hour. Right, we're all live. Hello, everyone. This is Max McGillivray from Beanstalk Global. We've got a really interesting one-off broadcast with Justin Chadwick, the CEO of the Citrus Growers Association in South Africa. If it's okay to say, Justin, you and I go back a long way. When I did a trip through Africa, when we rode a motorbike from London to Cape Town to promote fresh produce, we had a hell of a journey, and we were saved by Justin and his team in the respect of logistics and housing, and also the trips that they organised for us in South Africa. So we also felt indebted to Justin and his team. And when we saw this issue recently in the press, we thought, well, we need to help Justin and the growers in South Africa to see if we can create a bit of a solution, a bit of a difference. And to me, print media is great, but actually having Justin on to talk about the issues of why we're having this broadcast is more, I don't know, Justin, more fundamental to hear from your side. But Justin, before we start on the matters of the day, do you want to just give a bit of a background on yourself and the Citrus Growers Association, so everyone on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube have a better understanding to the CGA, please?
No, thanks, Max, and thanks for giving us this opportunity. Now, I'm so glad you visited us in person, because you've seen our industry and you've met our growers, and you've seen how advanced they are in terms of technology, etc. Totally. So the Citrus Growers Association represents citrus farmers in South Africa, Eswatini, the old Swaziland, Zimbabwe. We've also got membership now applications in from Namibia and Botswana and Mozambique. So we hope to be extending our Southern African footprint so that we can properly represent all growers in Southern Africa. Basically, what we do is mostly research orientated. So we collect money from all the growers, a levy per carton. And about 65 to 70% of that gets spent on research. So we've got our own research institution, and they do research. We also do a bit of logistics work. We do other market access activities. We provide information. And then a very important part of what we do is assisting the new growers in the industry. You know, we've got a big push from South Africa to include those previously marginalized and are now coming into the industry. So we spend 20% of our funds in that direction. And really it's all about ensuring that our industry remains competitive, it remains relevant in terms of environmental issues, ethical trading, and all those types of issues. So really representing Southern African citrus growers and attempting to keep them in business in the future.
Justin, well done. If you want to see some of the best most passionate growers. Just look at the backdrop that Justin has behind him, and that is typical of the amazing scenery that you see in South Africa. I biked into work this morning in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, and it's the summer here, and I was just thinking how beautiful my county was, and it was market day, and I biked past a fruit and veg stall, and the smell of the citrus just took me straight back to South Africa. It's no where I want to be. But let's talk about why we're here today, if it's okay, especially for those on the podcast. I just want to read out a recent press article, and it's one of the reasons why we reached out to Justin. So just bear with me as I go through it. South Africa calls for stranded containers to be cleared. Urgent steps have been taken to end the disruption of citrus supplies from South Africa to the EU. The South African government and citrus industry have said that around 900, just going to repeat that, 900 containers of oranges stranded in European ports should be cleared quickly. The containers have been held because of new EU entry regulations, but South Africa has said that they already comply with the new standards. Around 1,400 containers involved with the EU's decision to seize containers on arrival after the new regulations came into effect on the 14th of July this year. The government and citrus industry have maintained that the implementation of the new regulations within 3 days of their announcement on the 21st of June and the expectation that South Africa should immediately comply were totally unreasonable. This crisis is entirely of EU making and is at best a malicious action by an EU official or officials who want to do as much damage as possible to the South African industry, said a senior citrus leader. You cannot announce changes in accepted rules and expect any country to change their own export laws and implement the new regulations within the space of 3 days, the source continued. This involved not only the requirement from South Africa to comment on the implementation within 3 days, but also supplying the PU numbers of all growers participating in exports to the EU to the authorities in Brussels within 3 days. The source pointed out that the regulations were implemented even before these steps requested by the EU could be completed. As it happened, around 900 of the affected containers were compliant on arrival, and the documentation to prove that has been supplied. South Africans have also said the EU action contravened WTO requirements that changes in regulations should carry a 6-month notice period. Sources said that the cooling history of each one of the remaining containers detained in European ports is being investigated and is likely to also be compliant with the new regulations. Documents to prove this will be provided. Chief Executive of the Citrus Growers Association, Justin, in reacting to South Africa's decision to refer the dispute with the EU to the WTO, continued his commentary, his attack on the EU. We simply cannot allow what was clearly nothing more than a politically motivated move by the Spanish to decimate the businesses of thousands of local growers, South African, and the livelihoods that they support, while threatening the destruction of millions of cartons of top quality fruit by EU authorities, he stated. Observers have noted that action at the WTO would take time and would not help to resolve the immediate crisis. We now have to minimize our losses, and every day the matter drags on, the worse it becomes, Justin stated. Justin, over to you. Comments on the back of that, please.
No, thanks, Max. So I think the first thing is to just put it into perspective. We recognize the right of any country to look after their domestic industry. There's no doubt about that. We're the same in South Africa. We've had new pests coming into South Africa from the north over the last 10 years, and we do everything we can to ensure that our orchards remain free of new pests. There is, however, a caveat to that, and that is that we insist that any requirements or new measures in terms of keeping pests out is based on good science. And that is what the whole WTO International Plant Protection Convention covers. So in the case of false codling moth, which is the pest at issue here, South Africa developed what was called the Fcm Management System. And that system was incredibly efficient in terms of keeping interceptions down to very low numbers, firstly. And secondly, it was hailed by scientists around the world as being probably one of the best developed systems, in that it targeted consignments of fruit based on their risk. So in other words, if a consignment was high risk, then it had additional treatment, and if it was low risk, it had less treatment. And this is certainly important when one considers the energy and the green deal in the EU. because a lot of this is around cooling of fruit, which obviously takes energy and is against some of the Green Deal requirements. Whereas the EU measure, which they brought in, is just a blanket. It treats all consignments in exactly the same way. It's not going to bring about any less risk than the FMS. Our scientists can prove that. And the other issue the two other issues that we're concerned about is, one is it's discriminatory. I mean, we had, just to give you rough numbers, we had, say, 50 interceptions over the last 4 years on FCM, so roughly 10 to 15 a year. Whereas countries in Africa, because it's an African market, only exists in Africa, had in one case over 200, in the other case over 400 interceptions on peppers and roses. So and nothing has happened to them. So now, if FCM was the concern, you would expect that the EU would bring new measures against those products in those countries where there was a lot of FCM interceptions, but they haven't. They've targeted South Africa and they've targeted oranges. And the reason for that is not because they're worried about FCM. It's because they've been told by domestic citrus producers that we are a threat to their industry, and hence we are being targeted. So that's a big issue. And then the other one you mentioned, sorry, Max, is just the implementation period, totally impossible to comply with. And in fact, they said that any fruit entering after 14th of July had to have gone through the 25-day treatment. When the rule was actually issued on the 24th of June, came into force. So if you do your maths, you'll see it's impossible. So there's somebody sitting there in Brussels who either doesn't know how to read a calendar or isn't too good at maths.
So Justin, what's the answer? What's the solution? Because we've seen some of the similar things within the UK and EU in the respect of potato movements, seed potato movements. And admittedly, at the 11th hour, there's been brinkmanship and there's been a solution created, and it seemed to have been around communication that solution's been created. How do we all communicate with the EU for them to see the error of their ways and to not have this carte blanche issue with all the potential financial issues that this is going to create for one and all? Justin, what's the solution?
Well, I mean, the immediate problem with the containers at the EU borders, we don't have time. You know, I mean, every day that a container sits there, you pay demurrage on it, and every day the fruit gets older, and every day you're losing out on retailer programs that fruit is destined for. So unfortunately, we don't have time. So what we're doing is working very closely with the Department of Agriculture in releasing those compliant containers. So if we can prove that they've actually met the new requirements, even though they were sent before the 14th of July, those are being cleared as we speak. And there are a lot of good people working very hard to do that. The issue unfortunately is those that aren't compliant. So let's take a rough number, 200 of those containers worth 350,000 Rand each. Are not compliant, and so those either have to go through additional cold treatment on land, or in some cases, you know, starting the whole process from the beginning. So this crisis we are now, you know, it needs just hard work to get it resolved. I mean, if we can get, and people tell me that we won't be able to get this right, but we could get the EU just to recognize or interpret the new rule in the same way that our Department of Agriculture did. In other words, phytosanitary certificates signed up to the 14th of July complied with the old measures, and afterwards with the new measures. That's how our department interpreted it. That's how we interpreted it. And that made a little bit of sense because it gave us 21 days to do all that work that you read about earlier. Then that would resolve all of the problems that we have.
Absolutely, it seems so bizarre that there isn't commonality between your government and the EU. Justin, are you a lone voice with your own little bullhorn? Have you got other organisations, other trade organisations within the EU helping you?
Absolutely. So firstly, Freshfell is an important a grouping in the EU, and they can see the nonsense in terms of the implementation date, etc. And they're working very hard with their members. So we have the importers associations are very active, particularly in the Netherlands, Italy, and other European countries. So, unfortunately, it's each country dealing with it alone and trying to sort it out, because Brussels themselves have turned their back on it. I think they all went on holiday the day after they voted in the measure. They all disappeared. So left the mayhem to follow in their wake. We're definitely having a lot of help from the importers associations in the EU.
Yeah. Okay. And let's just go back over the last, well, I was going to say last 6 months. Let's go over the last 2 years, just to show how robust you and your colleagues and the citrus growers of South Africa have been through, because you got through COVID, and I was very lucky to be shown your COVID plan. It was one of the best plans I saw in an industry sector as to how to combat all the issues of the pandemic. You then had the floods, which closed the Durban port for a period of days, period of weeks, and now you've got this situation. Can you just give us a recap of what you've seen over the last 6 months, and also what impact potentially the worst case scenario this is going to have for South Africa, for the South African citrus industry, please?
Yeah, Max, you missed out quite a few. So after 2020's COVID, in 2021 in July, we had an insurrection in South Africa where riots and all that, which closed down the freeways for about 2 weeks in the peak of our season. So we had no fruit coming in from the north to the Durban harbour. We had to reroute to the Eastern Cape and Western Cape harbours. And no sooner were we through that than we had a cyber attack on Transnet, our monopoly port owner. So, that cyber attack crippled the ports and brought them to their knees. And basically there was no, you can imagine a huge, big logistics provider like Transnet not having any access to their database. You don't know what's in a container. You don't know where the container is. So that took quite a bit of time to resolve. Fantastic to Transnet. They were amazing in a crisis, that's for sure. And they stepped up to the plate, and we actually got things moving pretty quickly. So we went through that in 2021, and unfortunately that extended our season quite late, and that actually meant that prices just collapsed around the world with that late fruit just going into the market, and it also impacted on the Northern Hemisphere, unfortunately. So I think that's perhaps a reason why the domestic interests are gaining some traction. And then we enter 2022, and we have the floods, two floods actually, and then you obviously have the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and 11% of our fruit goes to Russia. So immediately you're sort of looking around for alternatives. Fortunately, we are shipping to Russia. We have a vessel leaving Durban harbour every week to Russia. It's actually hasn't been we're not going to send as much, but it won't be a complete disaster. Yeah. And then we had criminal events, labor unrest in our Eastern Cape area, which basically brought them to a halt for 2 weeks. And then we've got a road between the north, the N3 highway, the national road between the north and Durban Harbour, which is under a massive repair, and is really a bit of a death trap. In some places, we have accidents sort of every second day, claiming lives and just causing snarl up. So it just seems that it's like a horror movie. You come around a corner and there's a person with a knife, and then somebody shoots them, and you think, well, that's great. I'm on my way, and you go around the next corner, there's another person with a knife. So I really feel for our growers in South Africa, and let's be serious, Eswatini and Zimbabwe are also impacted by these rules, etc. It's just one thing after another, but we'll survive, Max. A resilient bunch, these growers. Yeah,
absolutely. But there's one thing I've learned about yourself, Justin, and your colleagues, and all the growers that I've met in South Africa. You're incredibly optimistic, and it feels like 6 months or 9 months ago we had a fantastic buyer on from Pick and Pay in South Africa, and as she stated, never waste a crisis. I thought, what a great way to summarize a potential dreadful situation as in the dreadful situation that you've got through. But let's be optimistic. Everyone still wants that beautiful South African citrus product that's in front of you, as well as all the other products that South Africa grow. So just with this situation that you see at the moment with the EU, are there any specific bullet points that you just want to present now, announce now, so those people that are dialing in can network or drop an email or drop a call to someone to say, I've listened to Justin from the Citrus Growers Association on Beanstalk. He's saying this. Why can't we do that? Is there anything directly that you can say that perhaps we could put down into our community, into our network to help you all?
No, thanks, Max. So I think the first thing is, you read that article earlier, and it would seem that, there's a big issue between South Africa and Spain, and that we want to fight with them or whatever. That's not the case. I mean, some of our closest friends are Spanish citrus producers, farmers associations, and we have the greatest respect for them, and they produce a really good product. So that's not the issue at all. Unfortunately, many of the Spanish grower unions and industry bodies have been fed a lot of information that's not exactly correct. Recently, Freshfell presented some figures to the Spanish industry showing that the overlap between South Africa and Spain is actually very, very small. We don't really impact on the industry much at all. They have far more impact from Morocco, Egypt, and those countries in the Mediterranean, Turkey, etc. So that's the first thing. The second thing is in terms of the risk of false codling moth itself. As I mentioned to you earlier, we would love to have an engagement with the necessary people around the efficacy of our false codling moth management system. It's, as I said, it's one of the best in the world. EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority, did an opinion on the FMS, but it was a really shoddy piece of work. And EFSA, they don't know FCM. I mean, if one flew into their face, they probably wouldn't know what it is, because they don't work with it every day. Yeah. We've got scientists that work with FCM every single day. We invest most or a large portion of our 150 million rand into FCM controls, etc. And so we're pretty sure that we're going to ensure that the risk mitigation is there in terms of keeping the pest out of the Spanish orchards, etc. So I think communication, which is what you are so good at, is the key to the game. We want to communicate. We want to talk to these people. We want to and have a dialogue both ways and hear from them what their real concerns are, so that we can address them. Because to me, Spain and South Africa should be the closest of friends, because they're in the northern hemisphere, we're in the southern hemisphere. We both produce a good quality fruit, and we can make sure that good quality fruit is on the shelves year round, and the consumer never turns his back or her back on our products. I mean, in the marketing world, if you have your product on the shelf all year round, consumers don't move away from it. They'll come and they'll buy their 10 oranges a week, year round. But if let's say there's no South African fruit on the EU shelves, they might go and buy apples or peaches or plums or something like that, and then they might never turn back to citrus again. And so it's a bit nonsensical to me, the stance that those domestic
exactly, Justin. And if I could just get a bit emotional about it, the one thing that I love about the fresh produce sector globally is it is a community. It is a family. And we had one of our clients on a broadcast recently, and as he stated, Max, we're so sexy. We're in the zeitgeist of fresh produce consumption at the moment. We've just come out of COVID. Everyone wants to be fit and healthy. They want to eat healthy fruit and veg. And again, I refer to your bowl of citrus in front of you, that the consumer wants it. And to have this nebulous scenario of the Spanish against the South Africans, and look at the World Citrus Organization that you set up with your Spanish partners. I love that when you set that up at formerly at Fruit Logistica. It was yourself and and your partner from Spain that set up. And to me, that was all about the family of fresh produce. And together, if we all work together and come as one, we're all going to sell more fresh produce, and we're all going to benefit, rather than having this situation, as you stated, of citrus not being on the shelf, or worst case, there not being citrus, or not being palm, or not being avocados, and the consumer going away, and then we worst case we're going to lose them for the long term. So yeah, surely we've all got to hold hands and work together on an international basis to create the ongoing success for fresh produce, because we are in the zeitgeist at this moment. The consumer wants to buy more fresh produce.
Yeah, so I mean, we had a World Citrus Organization steering committee meeting this week, and I was on the line with Jose Antonio from Olimpo in Spain, and with Talamed. Well, he wasn't there, but he's on the steering committee from Israel, and Sergio from Peru. So we, as you said, we're one big family in the citrus world. We all know each other. We all respect each other. We all look after each other. And there are areas where we don't agree. We perhaps don't agree on the phytosanitary things, so we don't include them into the WCO work. The WCO work is around promoting our product in relation to other products. So we want everybody to eat citrus. That's one thing that keeps us WCO members together. We want everybody to understand the nutritional and health benefits of eating citrus, and we want more people to eat it, and we want more people to eat more of it. And that's what we will do together. We need to stimulate that together, share information, etc. The issues that we differ on, let's leave those to other areas and other platforms to sort out.
Yeah, and it's something that we've spoken about in the past, Justin, that we're perhaps not very good as a sector internationally at promoting ourselves. When you look at some of the branded food products, if you go anywhere in the world, two people have already been there before you. The guy selling Michael Jackson t-shirts and the guy selling Coca-Cola. And we need the consumer to, instead of buying chocky bars and crisps, we need them to buy your citrus, because it's going to be better for them in the long term, and also it's going to be better for the planet sustainably, growing that sort of citrus. So I think, being optimistic, when you get through these hurdles, through the professionalism that you're showing within Citrus Growers Association and with the likes of your partners at Freshfill, are you positive, Justin, that there will be light ahead, that we will see more citrus being consumed globally, and that we can get over the speed bump? Are you positive about the future, Justin?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, the issue that we face in South Africa is that we've got a lot more citrus coming on stream. So we have to be positive about consumption around the world, etc. And the thing about promotions and stimulating demand is that it's an expensive business. And I think the reason why Coca-Cola and these others do it so well is because they've got deep pockets, and you know what the margins are on fruit. They're not that big. So it's an investment we need to make. I agree with you. And we're trying to learn from the other commodities, like avocados, for example. They do a fantastic job of promoting their product. They've got deep pockets because they have they've all agreed to contribute X cents per kg into a pot, and that, if you've got everybody doing it, then you've got a big pot, and that's why they can do what they do. So it's steps. So we have to get the trust amongst all of us in the citrus industry. We have to show that we can do it, that we're there with the right interests and the right agenda, and then we can really start hopefully stimulating the idea about some sort of promotion or promoting our sector at least.
Okay, so Justin, as you professionally work through this, let's call it this negative situation, that will hopefully come to a positive conclusion with the likes of the press that's going out, with the likes of our broadcast, with the likes of Freshfill, with the likes of other organisations. To me, there's always this negative there's always a positive from a negative. So if we can all work together to create that solution for you, hopefully next year and the year beyond will be far better than they have been over the last 2-3 years for you all.
Yeah, so Max, the other thing that's happening parallel is the WTO dispute resolution process. The South African government filed for a call for consultations with the EU on the FCM matter. And so that has to be heard. I think it's within 60 days that consultation has to take place. And I understand the EU have agreed to consultation. And what I'm told, I'm not a legal guy or WTO expert, but I'm told that most disputes get resolved at the consultation phase. When both parties sit in a room together and discuss and see where there's compromise or a solution that can be found. So we're really hopeful that with that communication and that consultation, that a resolution will be found, and that we don't have to prolong it into a panel and all the other legal proceedings that carry on after that, because it'll just become more expensive. It won't help relationships. It won't help our industry at all. It won't help the European Union at all. So we hope that that consultation will bear results, and that the measures will be appropriately put in place that ensure the domestic risk mitigation that the EU citrus producers need.
Yeah, well said, because we're not talking about ball bearings stuck in a container. We're talking about live fresh produce, and we're talking about people's livelihoods in South Africa, and that's why we need to see a quick resolution. Justin, fingers crossed for you. Just as an aside, we love promoting South Africa. If you're dialed in as a South African grower, whether it be citrus or any other products, and you want to show off your produce, feel free to contact us with any pictures of your amazing fresh produce, your amazing people, your amazing farms. We'd love to share and be able to show people the story behind your amazing fresh produce. Justin, if that's okay to say.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, we really appreciate the work you do in the Beanstalk platform. It really gives us an opportunity to talk to a lot of people. So thanks for this opportunity, and definitely we'll take up those ideas. Thank you.
No problem. And just to wrap up, we always try and catch Justin out on the spaces, and let's see if we can do it this time. Justin, could you name your favorite citrus, please?
My favorite citrus is actually grapefruit, and I know grapefruit's finding it very difficult in the European Union or the European market at the moment. I've spoken to some grapefruit growers, and they just say there's no market for it. But really, guys, get yourself and specifically a red grapefruit, and Star Ruby is probably the best variety that I know of. And cut that thing open and eat it. And Max, I don't know if you remember, but we had a thing called the Grapefruit Challenge a few years ago in 2010, I think it was, in the UK, and we had people, 30 housewives, we gave them a grapefruit a day to eat for 60 days, and then they kept a diary, etc., and they all had amazing experiences from eating a grapefruit a day. So seriously, that is my favorite fruit. I know I'm going to get shot by all the mandarin, orange, and lemon growers after this, but that is it as it is.
I love mandarin, and the team here love lemons for the reasons that you'll be aware of. So I think we've got that's all covered. Someone's just WhatsApp me. Does Justin have grapefruit with sugar or without sugar? Naked or not naked?
My goodness, please don't put sugar on. It's sweet enough without sugar. The problem is a lot of people remember grapefruit from 20, 30 years ago when it was seriously bitter. You added a whole lot of sugar. No, don't put sugar, please.
We've learned something today. Justin, we wish you all the best with this current situation. Knowing you of old, if anyone could create the success for this negativity, it is you and your colleagues at the Citrus Growers Association. Everyone, just dial in to the Citrus Growers Association. If you can share this message to create some lobbying effect to stop this silly situation. There's 600, 900 containers sat in the water of amazing fresh produce from South Africa that we need to get into the EU markets, and it's been stopped because of this needless bureaucracy. So anything that you can do, dialing in, listening in on the podcast, it would be much appreciated if you could help Justin and the citrus growers in South Africa. Justin, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you very, very shortly, and hopefully in person as well.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to all the people on the show. Thanks a lot.
No problem, Justin. All the best. Thank you.